Yeah, this is an extremely fluid situation at the moment. We know Donald Trump started a meeting with his national security team around 2:20 in the afternoon, and that meeting went for about an hour and 20 minutes or so before it wraps. Now, we know more actually from Donald Trump's posting on Truth Social than we do from the White House at any kind of official feed, as it were. Earlier in the day, he had perhaps the biggest break with what we've been seen as the status quo for the last couple of days. Remember when it first came out that these strikes were taking place from Israel onto Iran, Donald Trump and his national security team, chiefly the National Security Advisor and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, said that these were strikes that Israel was carrying out unilaterally. Well, that language has now changed. Donald Trump has seemingly moved away from a diplomatic solution and moved more towards siding with Netanyahu to go forward with an Israeli-led strike on Iran. It's unclear yet whether the US will join the Israelis, but that is what we are waiting to find out. We are also hearing from CNN in the last couple of minutes that Donald Trump is to speak in a few minutes. That's so far unconfirmed by the White House, unconfirmed by our poolers and my colleagues in the White House, but we'll bring you that obviously if we do get it. Now, the language from Donald Trump itself has been the most telling thing. As I said earlier on Truth Social, he posted, "We now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran." Remember that just a few days ago he was distancing himself from these strikes, saying that it was not he that had been operating these strikes. And then again, doubling down later on, he said, "We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We are not going to take him out, brackets, kill, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin." The New York Times also reporting that the US had intelligence in the last few days that the Iranians were preparing missiles to potentially strike on American assets in the region. It is believed that could be one of the reasons that Donald Trump cut his trip to the G7 in Canada short. Now, there is a lot of moving pieces here, a lot of things we don't know yet, a lot of things that are kind of circumstantial evidence at the moment, and the White House is telling us that nothing is official until it comes from the president himself. But we're waiting to hear from the president and find out where his head is at the moment.
And Fraser, meanwhile, Donald Trump, he's been facing, it appears, a growing backlash from parts of the MAGA movement about the prospect of the US perhaps getting entangled in another Middle East conflict.
Yeah, remember, Donald Trump has spent the last 15 or so years railing against Republicans and Democrats alike for what he sees as a series of missteps when it comes to foreign policy. And one of the things that he ran on was not getting entangled in another costly foreign war. Well, it appears that we could be on the brink of the US doing just that. Now, whether Donald Trump will see this potentially as more of a kind of surgical strike, as it were, that underground nuclear facility seems to be the kind of ace of spades here that a lot of people are talking about, and the Israelis really want the American B-2 bombers to be able to use their bunker buster bombs on that Iranian nuclear facility. Whether Trump will be able to see this as a more precise strike that he could greenlight, and that therefore that would not need congressional approval. It would not need the US to technically get involved in a war. Whether that's his reasoning is obviously what some people are putting forward as a potential scenario. But the right-wing members of the MAGA movement are desperate for this not to escalate to another regional conflict. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, all of the kind of stalwarts of the right wing of the MAGA movement are splitting with the president on this, as the president seems to move away from the thing that he said over and over again, that there's been no wars on his watch. Well, it's getting harder and harder to profess that now. So we could see some splintering of the Republican Party here as Donald Trump moves away from that idea, and the far right of the party remain resolute in that they don't want any more wars in the Middle East, and the US certainly not to get entangled in any war that could potentially erupt.